Tarin stood near the edge of the evacuation platform, his hands inside the pocket of his old colony jacket. All around him, people were rushing, shouting, and preparing to leave. The sky above planet Mera had changed. Once filled with calm blue rings into suns, it now glowed in streaks of red and orange. The air felt strange. Everyone knew Mera was no longer safe. The colony had lasted for 100 years. People were born here, lived full lives, and built dreams under this sky. But now, the planet had started to break apart. Energy surges were tearing through its crust. Earth Command had ordered a full evacuation 2 weeks ago. Most of the major stations were already empty. The last few shuttles were lined up, ready to take the final group home. Tarin was among the last to leave. He wasn't important, just a technician who kept the air systems and power grids running. He didn't talk much. He wasn't a leader or a scientist, but he loved the colony. He had spent his whole life here. And now, as the final hours came close, he stood there, quietly watching his home fall apart. He heard a soft voice behind him. Tarin. He turned and saw Rhaenyra stood there, holding her small bag, wearing the same green jacket she always wore during field work. Her dark hair was tied back and her eyes looked tired but focused. She was a colony scientist, one of the brightest. She had studied the strange signals that began when the planet started to change. Tarin had helped her sometimes with tools and cables, but they never had long conversations. Still, whenever she smiled at him, he felt something strange in his chest. Rhaenyra stepped closer. I was looking for you. She nodded slowly. I thought you left already. He replied, shook her head. No, not yet. There was a short silence between them. The sound of engines and shouting filled the background. But in that moment, everything felt quiet. I want to ask you something before I leave, she said. Tarin's heart skipped a beat. He looked at her, surprised. Something in her voice made him feel warm and nervous at the same time. Her eyes were serious, and her hands were shaking just a little. But before she could say more, the ground beneath them rumbled. A loud blast came from the west side of the platform. People screamed. One of the shuttle engines had burst into flames. Black smoke rose into the sky as security teams ran toward the Rhaenyra. Looked toward the explosion. We need to go, she said quickly. She turned around and rushed toward the shuttle. Tarin followed, his thoughts spinning. What did she want to ask? What was she trying to say? As they reached the boarding area, a loudspeaker announced an emergency delay. The fire had damaged the fuel systems. They would need at least an hour before lift. Of Tarin and Rhaenyra moved to the waiting zone. People were tense. Some cried. Some stared at the sky. Tarin noticed Rhaenyra checking a small device in her hand. It blinked with strange symbols. What's that? He asked quietly. She looked at him, hesitated, then handed it to him. It's reading the energy pulses, she said, and stared at the screen. Numbers moved quickly. Graphs shifted every second. He didn't understand much. But one thing was clear: whatever the planet was doing, it was getting stronger. This isn't just a natural disaster, she whispered at her and looked up at her. You mean the planet is doing this on purpose? Rhaenyra nodded slowly. I think Mera is alive. Or maybe it's being controlled by something. Tarin blinked. The idea sounded impossible. But Rhaenyra didn't joke about science. She had always been careful, always logical. I didn't tell the others, she continued. They would think I'm crazy. She paused and looked at him. But I knew you would listen. Tarin felt something heavy in his chest. She trusted him. Out of everyone, she came to him. Why me? He escaped. Rhaenyra smiled faintly. Because you always listen. You don't speak much, but you see things others don't. They sat in silence for a moment. The sky grew darker as another surge passed through the ground. Suddenly, her device beeped loudly. She looked at it, then stood up quickly. It's close. Something is moving under the platform, she said, and stood beside her. What do you want to do? She looked at him carefully. I want to go down there. I think it's trying to communicate. Tarin stared at her. The platform's lower levels were dangerous now. If another surge came, it could collapse. That's why I came to you, she said, not just to say goodbye. I wanted to ask, will you come with me? Tarin didn't answer for a few seconds. His heart was pounding. Part of him wanted to say no, to stay safe and wait for the shuttle. But another part, the stronger part, felt something calling. Yes, I'll come, he said. Rhaenyra's eyes lit up. Without another word, she led him toward the maintenance stairs. The rest of the colonists were still gathered near the shuttle, not noticing two people slipping into the underground levels. They descended into the lower tunnels. The air grew hotter. Lights flickered. The walls vibrated slightly, like a heartbeat. Terran followed closely behind Nira, feeling both fear and excitement. Something was down here, something old, something watching in deep inside him. He knew this was only the beginning. The stairs creaked under Terran's boots as he followed Nira down into the old maintenance tunnels. The walls were lined with wires, pipes, and flickering lights. Dust hung in the air. These tunnels hadn't been used in years, not since the colony upgraded the power systems. Nira held her scanner tightly in her hand. The screen blinked fast. Strange patterns danced across it like moving waves. She kept her eyes on it, her steps steady. Tarin looked around. The air felt warmer here, like the ground itself was breathing. He could feel soft vibrations in his feet. It was not like a quake. It was more steady, more alive. "What exactly are we looking for?" he asked quietly. Nira didn't look back. "There's a source of signal. I picked it up during one of the earlier energy surges. It's repeating, but no one else believed it was real. Why didn't you report it to command?" "I tried, but they only cared about evacuation, not research." "Not truth." Tarin nodded. That sounded like command. Always quick to run when they didn't understand something. They turned into a deeper tunnel. Pipes above their heads dripped water. Somewhere in the darkness, metal groaned. The scanner in Nira's hand beeped faster. "It's close now." Just ahead they reached a wide room. It was once a power hub, now abandoned. Broken machines lay in corners. Cracked walls showed signs of recent surges. In the middle of the room was a hole in the floor. It wasn't natural. It looked like something had melted. The stone and metal digging down into the earth. Nira knelt by the hole and held her scanner near it. The signals on the screen became sharp, focused. Like a language being whispered. "It's definitely coming from down there." She said, "The same pattern I picked up earlier. It's not random. It's communication." Tarin looked into the hole. Faint blue light glowed from below. "I'll go first," he said. "No, we'll go together," Nira replied. They used a rope from the emergency kit on Nira's belt to lower themselves down. The tunnel below was smooth, round, and glowing slightly from the walls. It was not man-made. It felt like something ancient and hidden. As they walked, the tunnel curved deeper. The blue light grew brighter. The signal on the scanner was now constant, no more noise. Just a clean wave of repeating pulses. Nira stopped walking. Tarin, look at this. She pointed to the wall. Strange shapes were carved into it. Not letters, not pictures. Something else. A pattern that looked like sound turned into shape. "It's the signal. It's burned into the rock." Tarin reached out and touched it. The wall felt warm, like touching skin under sunlight. As his fingers moved across the shapes, he felt something deep in his mind, a soft pulse, a memory. That wasn't his. A picture of light, water. Starsh pulled his hand back quickly. "I felt something," he said. Nira looked at him closely. "That means it's responding to you." "Why me? I'm just a tech." "You're human. That might be enough." They continued forward until they reached a chamber. It was wide and round, with a high ceiling made of crystal-like material. In the center was a large stone platform. It glowed with the same blue light. On the platform were several rings made of some unknown metal. They moved slowly, spinning in silence. "This is where the signal comes from." Nira Sage stepped closer and placed the scanner on the platform. Immediately, the rings began to move faster. Light flowed through the ground like rivers. Tarin stepped back as the light climbed the walls, covering the strange carvings. For a moment, everything around them was silent. Then, they heard a voice, not a voice made of sound, but one that spoke inside their minds. "You are here. You are heard. You have stayed." Tarin froze. His heart was pounding. Nira looked at him. She had heard it too. The voice continued. "Time has passed. You built and grew. We watched. Now we rise. Who are you?" Nira said. No answer came right away. The rings slowed again. The light dimmed but didn't fade completely. "They're not used to words," Tarin said slowly. "But they're trying." Nira looked at him with wide eyes. "You understand them?" "I don't know how. I just feel it." He stepped toward the platform and placed his hand on one of them. Spinning rings. His mind filled with visions again. He saw Mara long ago. Green fields, tall towers, Strange creatures walking among the trees. Then darkness, silence. A long sleep under the ground. When he pulled his hand back, he spoke softly. This planet was alive before we came. Something happened. It went silent. But now our presence, our thoughts, our machines, it woke them up. Nira stared at him. You saw that? He nodded. They're not angry. They're just confused. She picked up the scanner and looked at the readings. The signal is changing. It's adapting. Suddenly, another quake shook the tunnel. The platform cracked slightly. The rings stopped spinning. We need to go, Taran said quickly, but Nira stood frozen. This is the proof. Everything I studied, everything I believed, it's true. Another surge hit, stronger than the last. Rocks began to fall from the ceiling. Taran grabbed her hand. Nira will come back, but if we die now, no one will know this happened. She nodded slowly and followed him back through the tunnel. The path behind them began to close as pieces of stone and metal fell. They climbed the rope fast and returned to the surface. The evacuation site was in chaos. The damaged shuttle had been replaced with another. People were rushing. Aganon of the officers spotted them. Where were you? We thought you were lost. Taran didn't answer. He looked at Nira. She held the scanner close. Its screen still blinked with the signal. He sat quietly near the edge of the platform once more. Taran looked at her. So, what were you going to ask me before? Nira looked at him with a quiet smile. I wanted to ask if you believed in something bigger, something more than what we're told. Taran looked up at the darkening sky. The ground beneath his feet still pulsed softly. I do now. He saved last shuttle prepared for launch, but something had changed. A secret had been uncovered, and both of them knew they couldn't leave just yet. The shuttle's engines hummed in the background. People lined up with quiet faces and heavy hearts. The sky above Mara had grown darker, not because of nightfall, but because of the storm building in the upper atmosphere. Strange lights danced across the clouds like silent lightning. Taran sat beside Nira on the metal bench near the far end of the platform. Neither of them had spoken since returning from the underground chamber. The scanner in Nira's hand still pulsed with signals. She finally broke the silence. I didn't show anyone this part. Taran turned to her. What part? She opened her tablet and pulled up a hidden folder. Several files appeared, all marked private. One file was labeled Core Echo 7. She tapped it. The screen displayed a recorded waveform, unlike any regular data stream. It looked alive. I found this pattern weeks ago. It kept repeating even during signal blocks. No equipment failure could stop it. It was buried deep inside the colony's old power systems. Taran looked at the screen carefully. You think it was inside our own machines? No, I think it was hiding there like it was using our systems to speak. Taran leaned forward. That means it's been trying to reach out for a long time. Maybe even before the surges started. Nira nodded slowly. I tried to follow the signal. It kept pointing to the deeper layers of the planet. I believe something is down there, something very old, something that once lived and watched us build this colony. Taran felt a chill as he remembered the chamber with spinning rings and glowing light. What is it exactly? A machine, a mine, a living planet? I don't know yet, but it understands us, or at least it's trying to. She opened another file. It showed a map of the planet's underground network. Much of it was unknown, but a few tunnels had been marked by her in red. I scanned these areas with old drones. They were pulled offline one by one as soon as they got close. I think the planet sensed them. Taran frowned. So it doesn't want machines near it, but it let us walk in. Yes, because we're not machines. We think, we feel. Maybe it needs that. A loudspeaker echoed across the platform. Final boarding in 20 minutes. Prepare for departure. People around them stood up slowly and began gathering their things. Some looked back toward the colony towers. One last time, Taran looked at Nira. Are you going? She didn't answer right away. Her eyes stayed on the scanner. If I leave now, everything I discovered will stay buried. They'll send satellites here. Maybe, but they'll never understand it like we did. Taran nodded. Then we stay. She turned to him, surprised. You're sure? He smiled slightly. I already chose the moment. I followed you down there. I just didn't say it out loud. They stood and moved away from the crowd. Behind the platform was a small outpost tower built long ago. It was meant for weather monitoring and communication, now abandoned. They climbed the steps and entered the dusty control room. Taran checked the systems. Some were still working. We can use this place to hide out after they leave. The power grid will shut down. But the backup core in this tower should last for weeks. Nira set her scanner on the main table. There's something else I want to show you. She pulled out a small memory cube. It was old, scratched from years of use. This belonged to my father. He was one of the original settlers. A researcher like me, he believed the planet had secrets. Even back then, but no one listened to him. She connected the cube to the console. A video played on the screen. It showed a man standing in front of a green valley. Behind him stood strange stone pillars. Rising from the ground, her father spoke in the recording. I believe Mera is not just land and air. Something watches from deep below. The signals are weak but constant. It's not just noise. It's a language, a rhythm like breath or thought. The screen flickered and turned off. Nira looked at Tarin. I used to think he was chasing stories, but now I know he was right. Tarin placed a hand on the table. You're continuing his work, and now we're both part of it. Outside the tower window, the last shuttle began liftoff. Fire and dust rose around it as it climbed into the sky. People inside it were going back to Earth, back to safety. Tarin and Nira stood silently watching it disappear beyond the cloud storm above. Mera grew stronger. Strange rings of light moved across the sky and turned to her. What do we do now? She walked to the scanner and adjusted its settings. There's another location, a deeper one. The signal grows stronger there. I never had time to explore it, but now we can. She showed him the new coordinates. It was near the oldest part of the colony foundation, a mountain base built during the first 10 years of settlement. And remember the place, it had been closed off after underground shifts made the area unsafe. We'll need supplies and we'll have to move during calm periods between energy surges. I already prepared a survival pack in case I stayed behind. It's in my old lab. Tarin smiled. Looks like you planned this more than you said. She laughed softly. Maybe a little. I wasn't sure until you said yes. They gathered the basic tools, maps, and communication devices. The power in the tower flickered but remained steady. Tarin set up a data recorder to keep logs of their findings. That night they sat by the small heater in the corner of the tower. The stars above were still visible through the storm. Nira leaned back against the wall and looked up. This planet isn't ending, it's waking up, and we're the first ones. It spoke to Tarin, sat beside her silently thinking. Everything around him felt different now. The planet had a voice, and somehow he had heard it. Whatever came next would change everything. The sun rose slowly over the hills of Mera, casting pale golden light across the empty colony. Tall towers stood quiet, their windows broken, their lights off. The people were gone. Only wind moved between the buildings. In the small outpost tower near the launch platform, Tarin woke first. He stretched his arms, then stepped outside to check the sky. The storm from the night before had passed, leaving clear air and calm ground. For the first time in weeks, the land felt still. Inside, Nira was already packing. Her scanner, maps, and memory cube were neatly placed inside her bag. She looked at Tarin as he stepped in. We moved today. The signal is steady. Tarin nodded. He had already prepared their supplies, water packs, energy bars, emergency tools, and a small field generator. He knew the old mountain base would not have power. The journey was not short. They had to cross the southern ridge and move through the forest zone. Most of the trees had turned dry and colorless. Leaves cracked under their boots as they walked. Birds were gone. Silence followed them like a shadow as they walked. Tarin spoke softly. Do you think we'll find it this time? The real source. Nira looked at her scanner. I believe we're closer than ever. The signal from the last chamber was only the beginning. They reached the mountain base by late afternoon. It was half buried in rock and overgrown vines. The large steel doors were closed, covered in dust and burn marks. This place hasn't been touched in decades. Tarin said. Nira wiped the control panel clean. It didn't respond at first. Tarin connected the field generator and redirected power. With a sharp click, the doors opened slowly, revealing a dark hallway inside. They stepped in with flashlights. The air inside was heavy but breathable. Old signs and labels still clung to the walls. This was the first science station. My father worked here long ago. Nira whispered. They moved deeper inside. Rooms filled with broken furniture and empty shelves passed by. Some doors were jammed. Others swung open with a soft creak. Scanner. Nira's hand began to blink rapidly. It's here. Below us, Tarin searched the walls until he found an old access hatch. It was half covered in dust and metal debris. Together, they cleared the path and opened it. A ladder led down into darkness. Tarin went first. The air below felt warmer. At the bottom, a tunnel opened into stone. But unlike natural rock, the walls here glowed faint blue. Just like the chamber from Befrenera joined him, eyes wide with wonder. This isn't human-made, this is part of the planet's network. They followed the tunnel. It curved slowly, like a spiral. The deeper they went, the stronger the glow became. At last, they reached a large circular room. The center held a new platform, smaller than the first one. This one had no spinning rings. Instead, a sphere floated above the platform, glowing like a star trapped in a shell. Nira stepped forward. It's waiting. Tarin stayed beside her as she raised her scanner. But the device shut off as soon as it faced the sphere. It doesn't want tools, just people. Tarin said. Nira slowly placed her hand near the sphere. Light flowed from it toward her fingers. But it didn't burn. It moved gently like water. Then a voice came again, not in sound, but in thought. You returned. You carry memory. You carry choice. Nira's eyes filled with light. Her mind was being shown something. Tarin held her arm to support her. She pulled her hand back and spoke. It showed me the past. This planet had another form of life. Long ago they built cities above and below, but something happened to silence. They chose to sleep and wait for others to come. Tarin stepped closer to the sphere. As he did, he saw shapes and colors in his mind, images of stars, rivers of light, and beings made of both matter and energy. They've been watching us since we arrived, he said, learning from us, from our actions. Nira looked at him seriously. That's why the signal responded to you. You didn't come here with fear or control. You came with feeling, with care that matters to them. Tarin looked at the glowing sphere. It pulsed slowly, like a heartbeat. I think it wants something from us, he said. Nira nodded. Not just understanding, it wants connection. It wants to wake fully, but it needs trust. Tarin touched the platform. His thoughts became clearer. He understood the meaning behind the strange visions. The planet is not a machine, it's a mind, a sleeping intelligence. It feels pain, it feels memory. A gentle pulse moved through the chamber. The walls lit up, showing old carvings, figures standing side by side with humans, holding light between their hands. They want us to stay, Nira said, not as masters, not as invaders, but as partners. Tarin stepped back slowly. Then we can't leave, we have to be the voice between them and the rest of humanity. Nira smiled. That's what I was going to ask you before the shuttle. I wanted to know if you believed enough to stay behind and help me speak for this world. Tarin looked at her, his chest full of emotion. I do, and I will. They spent the night in the mountain base. The sphere dimmed slightly but stayed warm. Outside, the wind returned, but the ground stayed counter and sat by the entrance, watching the stars. Nira joined him with a blanket around her shoulders. We'll need to build something here. A new link between Earth and Mara. Tarin nodded. We'll do it together. He looked up at the sky, and next time they come back, we'll have something to show them, a world that spoke and people who listened. The first light of dawn spilled softly through the cracks in the old mountain base walls. Tarin and Nira sat side by side on the cold floor, warmed by a small fire they had made with gathered wood and fuel cells. The glowing sphere rested on its platform in the corner, pulsing quietly like a gentle heartbeat. Tarin looked at Nira, her eyes reflecting the flickering flames. They had been here for days, exploring the planet's secrets, learning to understand the strange signals that pulsed from deep beneath the surface. Each discovery made them more certain Mara was not just a planet, it was alive in a way no one had imagined. Nira broke the silence. There's something I never told you, she said quietly. Tarin turned his head toward her. What is it? She looked down at her hands, folding them tightly. When I first heard the signal in the tunnels, I thought it was just noise, random energy waves. But then I found the recordings my father left. He believed the planet was trying to communicate with us, that it wanted to wake up. Her voice grew steady, determined. I started to believe the same. But there was a question I couldn't answer. A question I wanted to ask someone who would understand. Tarin waited patiently, sensing the weight behind her words. Nira looked into his eyes. The question was, or would you stay? Not just for me or for science, but for the planet. Would you stay behind when everyone else leaves? Would you choose to be part of something bigger, something new? Terran's heart raced. He remembered the moment when she had said those words the first time, just before the explosion at the platform. Back then, it had seemed like a simple question. Now, it carried the weight of a future unknown. He spoke carefully. I wanted to stay with you that day, even before I knew what was down here. I didn't say it then because I wasn't sure what it all meant, but now, I believe. Nira smiled softly. You do? Yes, the planet, this signal, everything. It's more than just science. It's life, it's hope, and we're part of it. They sat in silence for a moment, listening to the quiet hum of the sphere. Then Nira pulled out the scanner and pressed a few buttons. The device flickered, showing new readings, complex waves of light and sound, patterns that seemed to respond to their presence. Suddenly, the sphere glowed brighter. The room filled with soft light, illuminating strange symbols carved into the wall, symbols that hadn't been visible before. The light pulsed in rhythm with the signal. Like a living heartbeat. Taring reached out to touch the sphere again. This time, as his fingers brushed its surface, images flooded his mind. He saw a vast world beneath the surface, deep oceans glowing with bioluminescent life, towering crystal structures that hummed with energy, and beings made of light that moved gracefully through the tunnels. He saw flashes of the planets, past great cities rising and falling, a time when the planet's intelligence had been awake and thriving. Then, a long sleep, the planet had waited, silent and patient, until humans arrived. Taring pulled his hand back. Breathless, it's showing me everything, he said. The history, the promise, the warning. Nira nodded. Double quotes, yes, and it's waiting for us, waiting for someone who can help it awaken fully. But it needs trust. It needs us to believe. Taring looked at her, feeling the weight of the moment. Then I choose to trust, he said. To stay and be the voice between the planet and the people who left. Nira reached out and took his hand. Then we're in this together. The sphere pulsed warmly in response. Over the next days, they worked to build a small communication hub in the mountain base, using old equipment and new ideas. They connected the sphere's signals to devices that could translate the planet's thoughts into messages humans could understand. Each day brought new revelations. The planet spoke not with words, but with feelings and images, memories of ancient life, the beauty of its force, the sadness of long silence, and hope for a future shared with humanity. One evening, as the twin moons rose over the horizon, Nira sat beside Taring. I never asked you, she said softly. What do you think will happen if we fail? If the world doesn't listen? Taring looked at the stars. Thoughtful. If we fail, then at least we tried. But I don't believe we will. People are stronger than they know. And maybe it's time they learn to listen? Nira smiled. Yes, maybe it is. Days later, a faint signal reached them from the departing fleet in orbit. It was a message from Earth, a warning that the colony evacuation was nearly complete, and that they should return. Taring and Nira exchanged a look. They had a choice: return with the fleet or stay behind and speak for a world waking from silence. Nira spoke first. I can't leave. Not now. This is our home too. Taring nodded. I stay with you. The planet's gentle pulse grew stronger. In that moment, they understood the true meaning of her question. Would you stay for what you believe? Not just for me. And with their answer, a new chapter for Mara and humanity began. The days grew longer as Taring and Nira settled into their new roles as guardians of Mara's secret. The old mountain base had become their home, a quiet place where the ancient intelligence of the planet slowly revealed itself through the glowing sphere. Every morning, they would wake to soft pulses of light that filled the chamber, carrying messages of memory and hope. The planet's voice was not a voice of words, but feelings, gentle waves of emotion and images that washed over their minds like a calm sea. One morning, as Taring prepared breakfast from their modest supplies, Nira was already at the sphere. Her eyes closed, listening. They're reaching out again, she said softly, stronger this time. Taring joined her, placing his hand near the glowing surface. The light shifted and brightened, filling the room with a warm glow, A new wave of thoughts entered their minds. Stories of the planet's past, its dreams, and its wish to share its wisdom. Suddenly, a vision came clearer than before. They saw vast forests alive with strange creatures, rivers of light flowing beneath the surface, and cities built not from stone, but from energy itself. The planet's message was clear. It had learned from humans, from their kindness and struggles. It did not want to control or destroy, but to coexist and grow together. Nira opened her eyes, smiling. It wants to be friends. Tarin nodded, feeling a deep calm in his heart. But with the beauty came a warning. The planet showed them images of what could happen if humans arrived with fear or weapons. Destruction and pain for all. We must prepare, Nira said. We are the bridge now. They spent their days creating a communication device that could translate the planet's feelings into human language. It was slow work, but each success brought hope. One afternoon, a soft alarm sounded from their equipment, a signal from orbit, a message from the fleet that had left Mera. Tarin listened to the message. The fleet had detected unusual energy readings on the planet and was preparing to return for another evacuation. We have to stop them, Tarin said urgently. Nira agreed. If they come with ships and weapons, it will scare the planet. It will close off again or worse. They quickly prepared a transmission, using their device to send a message from Mera itself. A call for peace, understanding, and friendship. Hours later, a response came back from the fleet commander. We hear you. We will delay the return. Waiting for more information, relief washed over them. For the first time, it felt like Mera and humanity were truly connected. Days turned into weeks. Tarin and Nira became more than explorers. They were ambassadors, protectors, and friends of a living world. One evening, under the twin moons, Nira turned to Tarin. Do you ever regret staying? Tarin looked up at the stars. Not for a moment. This is the most important thing I've ever done. Nira smiled and took his hand. We've started something new. A future where humans and planets can understand each other. The sphere pulsed. Brighter, as if it agreed. Together, they watched the sky, ready to greet whoever came next. Not as strangers, but as partners. The mountain base was calm, bathed in soft morning light. Outside, the wind carried the scent of earth and distant rain. Tarin stood by the glowing sphere, feeling its gentle pulse beneath his fingertips. The planet Mera was alive in a way no one had ever known. Nira joined him quietly, carrying the last of their supplies. She smiled softly, the kind of smile that held years of hope and courage. They sent a message, she said. Earth wants to open talks. They want to understand. Tarin's heart lifted. For so long, humanity had feared the unknown. Now, after months of waiting, the chance to build a new future had arrived. They're ready to listen. He said. Nira nodded. Because of us, because we stayed together. They prepared the base for the arrival of the first diplomatic mission. The communication device was ready, able to translate the planet's feelings into words humans could understand. As the hours passed, the sky above Mera shimmered with strange colors. Ships from Earth slowly approached, their engines quiet and cautious. Tarin and Nira waited near the landing platform, nerves and excitement tangled inside them. When the ships touched down, figures emerged: scientists, diplomats, and explorers, all curious and hopeful. The leader, a calm woman named Mira, stepped forward. She looked at Tarin and Nira with respect. We come in peace, she said simply. Tarin smiled. You have nothing to fear. Mira speaks, and we have listened. The group followed them into the mountain base. There, the glowing sphere pulsed brightly, casting light on ancient symbols and new hopes. Mira placed her hand near the sphere. Images filled her mind, visions of the planet's past and present, of humans and the living world connected at last. It is beautiful, she whispered. And alive, Nira explained everything: the signals, the history, the awakening. The team listened with awe. Together, they planned the future. Scientific teams would study Mera's intelligence with care. Diplomats would build trust between worlds. Tarin stood beside Nira, feeling the weight of what they had begun. Later, under the twin moons, Nira turned to Tarin. Do you remember the day I asked you that question? He nodded. The moment my heart stopped, she smiled. I didn't just ask because of me. I asked because the planet needed a voice, because we both needed to believe. He took her hand gently, and I believe in you, in Mara, in us. The glowing sphere pulsed once more, sending waves of light through the chamber, a promise of new beginnings. Outside, the twin suns rose higher, shining on a world no longer silent. A world where humans and Mara would grow together, stronger and wiser. A new dawn had come for two worlds, united by hope and understanding.